Hello, welcome back everyone. This is the episode breakdown for Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2's Episode 1. I've already made a breakdown of the opening, so if you're interested in that, please do check it out. As for the episode though, I really do want to get right into the breakdown, but there's a few things I want to say before I get into it. First of all, yes, it's Shota Gocho. Gosso is one of the best episode directors to ever grace the anime industry, and it was always fascinating to think about what he would be capable of if he had free reign and full control over the entire production of an anime as the chief director. And episode 1 of Jujutsu Kaisen is just that. This is Gosso at his rawest form, because not only is he the chief director, he's also the episode director here. Visually, the style that he's gone with is more comparable to that of Yu Nakayama's Chainsaw Man than it is to Jujutsu Kaisen Season 1. It is definitely a mix of the two, but I would say it's more like a 65-35 split, the dominant influence coming from Chainsaw Man. And there are two main reasons why Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2's aesthetic looks kinda similar to Chainsaw Man's. Number one just being that the compositing and art direction team of MAPPA as a whole has improved significantly since Jujutsu Kaisen Season 1. And I'm talking about the Seshimo line in particular. Before this line was even the Seshimo line, we had God of High School, where the art direction and compositing was atrocious. Then we had Jujutsu Kaisen, which was more of the same. Then we had Jujutsu Kaisen 0, where it was just significantly improved, but I just thought that was because movie production conditions that it had. But then Chainsaw Man came around and it was even better. And now with Jujutsu Season 2, this is my personal favorite overall aesthetic that a MAPPA show has ever had. The second reason the overall aesthetic feels similar to Chainsaw Man is just because Shota Gochizuno's style is quite a bit similar to Ryu Nakayama's. Back when Chainsaw Man aired, it was really interesting to see different episode directors' interpretations of Ryu Nakayama's vision. Some were just a natural fit for it, like Tatsuya Yoshihara and Shun Enokido, because they are long-time good friends with Ryu Nakayama. Some borderline ignored it, like Hironori Tanaka. It was clear that to an extent, Hironori Tanaka was still respecting Ryu Nakayama's vision, but he was not going to be held down by animation producer Seshimo's ideals. Animation producer has outright said multiple times that he's not going to let Chainsaw Man's animation be too idiosyncratic or too creative, because he wants to keep it accessible to a wide range of audience, which can pretty much be translated to, we don't want the show to look like Mob Psycho 100, because we want normies to think that this is well animated. And trying to make a show where a chick pukes into the mouth of a minor and then tries to fuck him, accessible to a wide range of audiences, is about as good as an idea as playing a movie with a straight masculine lead in a classroom of gender studies students. There was another very fascinating director, however. One that felt at home when it came to his storyboarding ideas, matching Nakayama's vision, but also, like Hironori Tanaka, could not be bogged down by studio interference. Enter Shota Gochizuno. Gosso's Chainsaw Man episode is easily the best Chainsaw Man episode, the best episode of 2022 as a whole, and one of the best episodes I've ever seen in anime. Because he's also someone who takes inspiration from live action, but of course, distorts it to its absolute limits. His storyboard style was just a natural match for Nakayama's vision, but while also being easily the most creative among all of the Chainsaw Man episodes, especially when it comes to animation styles. And that is exactly the philosophies that he's applying to Jujutsu Kaisen. Gosso's incredible ideas of spacing shines through every single scene of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2's first episode. And when it comes to the animator's works, the styles is just absolutely unrestricted, just never letting the creative juices stop flowing. And Gosso has built the show from ground up with these philosophies. That is also why the character designs look far simpler, so that the animators can just take these designs, do whatever the fuck they want with it. There are only 11 key animators in this entire episode, and I'm sure that most of their scenes required very minimal animation director input. The reasons being that the character designs are far simpler, and so it's just much easier to draw, and because they don't have to adhere to a specific style, and hence they can just animate in their own style, and it would be pretty much unchanged in the final product anyway. A good example of this would be animator Yosuke Yajima's work. He did a good amount of animation in Jujutsu Kaisen Episode 1. For Chainsaw Man, he only did a couple of scenes for the entire season. That's because Chainsaw Man desperately required animation directors because of the more complicated character designs and the necessity to adhere to a particular style. And since Yosuke Yajima is a very good artist, that meant that he was pretty much stuck doing animation direction instead of animation. The quest for perfect character designs was so high that even corrections such as this one was recorrected by the chief animation director, and you are absolutely not going to see that kind of stuff in Jujutsu Kaisen. The character designs will be a mix of outrageously detailed, to minimal line work such that it facilitates animation, to simple chibi designs, with of course sprinkles of consistency thrown in there when the scene is corrected by the chief animation director. This of course also makes the show fundamentally easier to make. Just having a few more lines to draw makes the drawing outrageously more difficult to animate, something that simply would not be possible in this schedule. Now, these decisions are definitely going to be divisive. Not everyone is going to like this. While it's similar to Chainsaw Man in overall aesthetic, it is the complete opposite when it comes to animation philosophy. This is the yang to Chainsaw Man's yin. Chainsaw Man's yin was also divisive because it was limiting individual animator creativity and also just unnecessarily complicated to the point where it resulted in a production crash. Of course, the horrible production schedule was a big reason as well, but trying to maintain an outrageous level of polish, even in horrible production conditions, is obviously not going to be good for the staff. And Jujutsu Kaisen's yang is just going to be unfiltered chaos. I'm talking about ridiculousness like Tatsuya Yoshihara's infamous episode 63 of Black Clover. And I'm all for that kind of shit. It's the most punk shit ever. Of course, this is a project that's gonna have the casual viewer be like, my husband's eyes no longer look like clouds. And why are my babies walking in such a goofy way? But the creators just don't give a fuck. They're just gonna make what they think is the best possible product. And yeah, I'm gonna enjoy every second of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, I can already tell. Later into the season, obviously expect the quality to drop because the production conditions are just that bad. But even then, I don't think the quality would drop as much as Chainsaw Man's did towards the later episodes because of the aforementioned reasons of animation philosophies. Add to that the fact that the staff is just going to be stacked beyond even what we saw from Chainsaw Man. So yes, it's definitely going to be a ride to be remembered. As someone whose favorite modern shonen is Jujutsu Kaisen, I couldn't be more happy. Well, I could be if the same staff had even more time to work in better conditions, but hey, this is the next best thing. Let's get into the breakdown itself now. Immediately right off the bat, we get to see some awesome hand-drawn background animation. Background animation is not something that's easy to do. It's the most time-consuming and difficult to imagine component of any kind of animation. This whole segment of Geto is a mix of animation between Takafumi Mitani and Shinsuke Kozuma. I would say Kozuma's output is definitely minimal compared to Takafumi Mitani's, because from my perspective, this entire scene just looks like it's animated by Mitani. From how similar the background animation here looks to this scene, to the effects animation, to this scene, and also the reverse morphing to this morphing scene, it pretty much looks entirely animated by Mitani. The art direction and compositing are absolutely perfect. The way this scene is structured to the overall flow of the story, anime original scenes are always going to be impressive and require directorial input because these are scenes that start from the script phase, which is something that affects the pacing element of the entire show. This is why shows that have horrible production schedules also suck when it comes to pacing. Good examples of this is One Punch Man Season 2 and Jigoku Raku, where scenes just feel like they're just thrown together instead of a unique animated take of an adaptation of a pre-existing manga. This shot of Geto is of course very creepy. I wouldn't be surprised if this was corrected by Gosso herself. Very minimal detail, but still a very strong drawing. This piece of animation is again just so needlessly complex. I can't help but laugh. They 2D animated the shadows from completely different perspectives while also having different light sources. Right now the only light source is the street lamp, so you only get to see like one shadow of Geto here. And the shadow of railings can't even show because they're on the other side, right? But now they're introducing another source of light, and then the car comes in, you see the shadow of the railings, and you also see Geto's shadow completely change in direction and then move alongside, rotate alongside the movement of the vehicle. That is so incredibly difficult to pull off in 2D animation, especially when the base perspective is already something very complicated. This is a very classic Gosso shot with absolute intricate precision when it comes to spacing of the character. In terms of raw talent when it comes to episode direction, Gosso is of course one of the best, but I would say there are other episode directors who might be a match to him. But when it comes to the idea of spacing and spacing on its own, Shota Gojizono is absolutely undefeated. The vehicles are 2D, both the cars are 2D, right? Which is something that's so incredibly rare to see in modern 2D anime. Even in season 1, the vehicles were pretty much 3D the entire time. So this is just quite bizarre, especially considering Shota Gojizono is a master of 3D 2D mixing. So you would expect the amount of 3D used to actually increase, but it's lesser here. This cut again feels very similar to Chainsaw Man, the beginning of Chainsaw Man. This curse, just really creepy. The entire episode as a whole looks way brighter than it looked in the PV. This scene in particular in the PV just looked too dark for anything to be visible. It's still dark and monotone because of the depressing nature of the scene, similar to again episode 1 of Chainsaw Man, which is again much colorless compared to the coming episodes. But yeah, I enjoy the fact that I can actually see what the fuck's happening here. And again, the way the curse goes apart is just very cool to see. At the end here, it switches to ones. Really cool shot composition. Again, I don't understand why there's a cut off hand right here. Maybe it's what's left of the curse that Geto just absorbed, but other than that, I have no idea. Absolutely love the character acting animation here. Even if they just didn't literally say that it tastes like puke and shit, you could still easily tell that Geto is not having a good time eating the curses just from the character acting animation here. This is the expression that you would make if you were consuming something from Burger King, for example. The exaggerated shape of his jaw and the cheekbones emphasized by the shadow just shows that he's cringing very strongly here. And now look at that, a hand-drawn crowd animation, which is again just ridiculous to see in a project with a horrible schedule like Jujutsu Kaisen. Crowd animation is not easy to do, and you're much better off using CGI for it, but we saw beautiful 2D animated crowds in Chainsaw Man as well. This whole sequence is animated by Shinsuke Kozama. It's one of the most unique sequences I've seen in anime in a long time because of the way it's animated, the way it's composited, and the art direction especially. The 4:3 aspect ratio, the filters on every single element, the motion blur of the dog wagging its tail. Almost as if the TV recording cannot keep up with frantic motions. That is Shinsuke Kozama animating in a unique way for this specific scene, and also every other teams like the compositing and the art direction perfectly matching that. The scene is just in so perfect harmony. The little girl here is hand-drawn and everything else is part of the art direction, but it feels like the girl belongs in that frame so well. This is the final shot of the house and you see a Gosso fisheye with this, and this exact same shot is reused later in the episode, which is also drawn by Shinsuke Kozama. I'll get to that later, it's very cool. Next is just continuous art direction and flex. The improvement in art direction is just works to the favor of the show the most, I would say. The entire directorial uplift is of course good, but the art direction is the best component, even among all of that. The volume in Mei's breasts is just gotten across so well here. The drawing Mei is flat-chested because it's two-dimensional, but the character Mei has large voluptuous titties, and that has to be shown via animation techniques. Here of course the curvature helps, but the shadow is what really shows how big and round her titties are. The wrinkles in the clothing is just really well drawn, but the way the wrinkles also go around the shape of her tits perfectly, like this one small triangular fold here that carries forward the curvature of her tits into the chest. Same on this side, but it's accentuated even more with this shadow, then joining here and then joining like this, and also the base of the shadow, which is like the halfway point of the titties. This part is dark and in the shadow because the light is falling here. If light is falling here and not here, that means there's a shape curvature here, such that light is falling here and cannot hit here because of the curvature. Just a very impressive drawing, so shows an incredible understanding of animation volume. This is such a cool perspective shot, also very complicated and mechanical because there's the interior of a car. Again, just hand-drawn vehicles. What is up with this? Why are there hand-drawn cars on my screen right now? With extremely good shading nonetheless. That's crazy. This portion is again animated by Takafumi Mitani. I do see a little bit of in-betweening error here. You see the way the perspective is shifting in a bit jarring way. I do think that's because of poor in-betweening work. You can expect to see more of that as the season progresses because the schedule is again so bad. Yeah, I can tell the keyframes are pretty good, but the in-betweening just couldn't keep up. It's not too bad, but it's still easy to make out that this scene had rushed in-betweening. Also love the small details like Mei completely keeping track of the kid and the mother as they are moving past. Her eyeballs just gradually shifting to the side. Really cool. Also, they're going for partial lip syncing. There's full lip syncing where every single mouth movement is accentuated, which was very common in old Western movies and very rarely seen in modern anime. Then there's partial lip syncing like this and Chainsaw Man and most anime movies. And lastly, we of course have just full-on mouth flaps, which just goes regardless of what is being said, which is common in most anime. This is a really cool full 3D shot, and I also think that this is a callback to Jujutsu Kaisen Season 1. The way the timing changes is also really cool here. You can tell it's raining, but then it slows down, and when it slows down, you see the individual droplets of the rain. And then when we gradually speed up again, you no longer see the droplets. Again, a shot where the art direction really makes the shot. The cutoff in vibe is shown via art direction. You see normal trees still here, and from there, you see just dried up trees. Really gorgeous shot of mountain and beautiful sky as well. Again, more continuous art direction flex. This looks so gorgeous. And the next shot is even more beautiful. So fucking gorgeous. It's crazy. This is again the second shot that I was talking about. This one scene is also drawn by Shinsuke Kozama, and it's a parallel of the first scene that he also drew of the house. The layout is 1-to-1. It has the same Gosso fisheye effect, and the house is also placed in the same way. But of course, it looks completely different. The painting on the house's texture is completely different. And of course, in the foreground, this time we have a lot of overgrown plants and vegetation. This shot is also just a classic Gosso shot. I remember seeing something very similar in Chainsaw Man as well. I love how the onomatopoeia is just shown on screen. Again, while there's clear live action influence in the way Gosso storyboards his shots, he doesn't stray too far away from the source. This shit literally came from a comic book, so having like onomatopoeia on screen makes sense. From here, it's just continuous, extremely impressive layout work. Every single shot is unique. Every single shot is made to look like, well, the place is haunted. It's also just cathartic to see that what was once Jujutsu Kaisen's and, well, Studio Mappa's biggest weakness as a whole, being the compositing and art direction, is now one of the greatest strengths. The shot is also very cool. I love the way the 2D character is mixed with the background. 2D character is also drawn in ones, which is why the 2D animation also looks 3D to an extent. It's honestly like overly fluid. I do think that the mixing could be even better with the 3D background here, because it does feel a little bit floaty. The reason just being that the shadows are not accentuated all that well here. Like starting here where you can clearly see the shadow, it no longer looks floaty, but here like you can barely see the shadows, and so it just feels a little bit floaty. The shot is again just so impressive. I can't tell how much of it is 3D and how much of it is art direction. I can't tell for sure that these chairs and these boxes are 3D, but apart from that, the super background, I don't know, man. I really don't know. Impressive shot composition here again. It's not like a flat top-down view, because we see the individual lights on the chandeliers from different perspectives, and also we see the entire front side of Utahime here instead of a top-down view. The horror storyboards are just really strong here. The door just slowly closing is just so cool. Again, look at this. It really is just cinema. This whole sequence is animated by the aforementioned Yasuke Yajima, and the most impressive thing here animation-wise is definitely the lens flare that is hand-drawn by Yusuke Yajima. These lines and the shadows, well, not shadows, it's literally the opposite of shadows. It's the light itself. The way it's drawn just gives so much hand-drawn charm to the scene. There's something about hand-drawn lens flares that's always really fascinated me, like this sequence in Bocchi the Rock. It's impressive on its own, but really the light flare is what makes the scene for me. The other thing that I like about the shot as a whole is, of course, the 3D backgrounds. Again, it's just so good and so creepy. This feels like it's straight out of Resident Evil 6. For those who've played that game, continuous good character acting, of course, it never stops. And yeah, this is what I'm talking about. The way the torch just shifts slightly towards the side, facing the screen, and the lens flare when it faces the screen, to then just dissipate again when it's no longer pointed towards the screen. It's great. I love shit like that in animation. The way she grabs the doorknob is also really cool. The perspective here is already complicated as it is because of the doorknob. The scene literally makes no sense. The doorknob is almost as big as Utamiya's head. Doorknobs are usually supposed to be smaller than a person's head. But here the perspective drawing is just so good that it sells the illusion of, well, three-dimensionality so well. Especially with a hand coming from the bottom of the frame to grab the doorknob. It's perfection. Open the door. Really cool reflection shot. Reflections is something Shota Burizono has mastered a long time ago. Love how the art direction is again telling its own story here. It's creepy and it's sad and it's painful. No requirement of words there. If the same scene was in, like, let's say Demon Slayer and this was Tanjiro, he would be like, this is probably where the entire family committed the suicide. It is so sad that I live in a world where I wasn't able to help these people. Why is it that I always survive in such situations? Why am I not the one who committed suicide? This is just so sad. Can we hit 50 likes? This instead is just using the visual medium to its best strengths. This you can tell it's probably the kids' room because of the half-built railway tracks. This is another example and probably the best example. In the attic, you can see someone keeping a track of the days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6 times 5, that's 30 days. Plus more. After 30 days, the scribbles just became a lot more chaotic. The person was slowly losing their mind, as would happen if you spent more than 30 days in an abandoned ghost house. The shot is also similar in that regard. The trekking bag. All these chairs were animated by the animator, by the way. You can tell from the way they are drawn. Also, the small little table here is also drawn by the animator. It's also very cool. My headcanon and the untold stories keep evolving the more I look into the scene, because you see like a small note here and you see the chair flipped in the back. So it could be like someone was writing their final words or like a will, but they also realized that, you can't make it out of this place. So you just flip the chair out. Thinking about artistic intent like this might sound pretentious to some of you, but it's fun for me. This whole segment is animated by Hokuto Sakiyama, and Sakiyama's style was just so unique that people thought it was rotoscoping, including me. I thought this was rotoscoped for sure. If I had to explain Sakiyama's style, it feels like an in-between of Shinya Ohira style with Takuya Ninuma shading. The character movement is of course ridiculous. The effects animation with the lens flares, again, really cool. Love how we're being carried forward to the character here as well because of the sideways view. And also the windows are shifting in perspective, right? Just look at this portion of the window. Yeah, that's shifting in perspective. That has real depth. Is that 3D modeled? I think the entire background is 3D modeled now that I look at it. Yeah. Gosso, you madman. This whole portion is really well animated. Love the background animation here. Again, really similar to something that Gosso did in Osama Ranking. This motion blur here is again just a very unique take on this animation. You can tell that it's not just a compositing team just throwing in motion blur effects here. This is artistic intent. The animator here specifically requested for motion blur. Gosso storyboards just never stop giving. You see the inside of the wall with all the electricals and shit. And then you go from the other side. So fucking cool. And yeah, this shading was what I was saying. Looks very Ninuma inspired. Just extremely cool looking shading, very detailed. It also goes back to what I said previously, that is, if animators who like drawing a lot of detail wanted to draw a lot of detail, they will, because the character designs are just that flexible here. Really cool smear frame here as well, just no line art in the smear. Low outline count as a whole. This drawing again looks like it was done by Taki Ninuma. Cool fisheye shot, and this background is continuously reused for multiple scenes. That again saves resources while also being creative in its own way. Again, visual storytelling done really well. Meimei talks about the marks she's created on the wall, and Utahime has to strain her eyes, and then we see the marks created on the wall. You don't need to tell us why Utahime is making this expression here. We already saw that back with Yuji and Nanami. Again, a goofy face, but then this drawing is just held on for like the next few seconds, and just let the 3D background do its thing. Shun Enokido's representation of like an infinite space was already very cool to see in Chainsaw Man, and now we get to see Gosso's take on that. Again, a background that's just held for the entire scene. You just see the characters walking past the background. This kind of stuff, again, saves resources, while also being unique in its own way. So it's not bad or lazy. Going back to the same previous background, we're now getting to the scenes animated by Taewei Liu, again an animator who did work on Chainsaw Man. Again, reusing the same background, but going the extra mile when it comes to animation. Every single pose that she makes, the pose is different every single time. And the passage of time is also shown, because the background is also slightly shifting, right? Just look at the background. The background is also slightly shifting, which makes it look like the three backgrounds are just completely different when it's the same background being reused thrice. Another really cool shot. This is like a CCTV camera shot. And then she's just putting all the boxes. For the last boxes, the chaotic nature of how fast she's putting the boxes is shown through smears. Also love the face she makes here. Just so cool. Just a smug expression. Just the smugness in her face is nice. Meimei's snap, again, has smears in it. A simple shot like this is made more appealing via camera tracking. The way the camera tracks as she's pointing backwards. Camera movement and tracking can either be this cool or be this goofy. It all comes down to the director's talent. Again, this woman just never stops moving. Continuous change in expression and poses is just so impressive. The animation is great. Meimei's finger, also the perspective on the finger is just very impressive. The way it shifts as well. In live action, like literally my finger, the way it changes perspective is very easy to see because, well, it's just me moving my finger. But getting those perspectives across an animation is very difficult. Utahime with the classic get set pose, and then we have Meimei's get set pose, which pretty much just looks like a lingerie model throwing her best sexy pose. I can't imagine how she would start running from this pose. Now is the starting of this segment. This is the single best cut of animation in this entire episode, and it's animated by Yoshihide Inoue, one of the best up and upcoming animators. His raw talent is pretty much immeasurable. Every single time this man animates, he one-ups himself. He made one of the best sequences of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 1 as a whole. His animation on Jujutsu Kaisen 0 with Meimei's entire sequence, and also the climactic sequence with Yuta, was just really impressive, and the Hironori Tanaka corrections of course help. Then he worked on Chainsaw Man, where his animation was just so good that people thought it was animated by Tatsuo Yoshihara. He takes a good amount of inspiration from Yutaka Nakamura when it comes to the style of smears, the style of effects, and also the style of impact frames, but his animation timing is just completely different from Yutapon. Another really cool thing about Inoue is how he consistently animates alongside Shinseku Kozuma. We saw that in Dororo, where they both animated in the same sequence. Same thing happened in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, where they literally animated cuts back and forth. Chainsaw Man again in episode 2 where Inoue animated. Shinseku Kozuma also did a cut. And in Jujutsu Kaisen episode 1, again, Kozuma and Inoue are working together. The best thing about the scene, and what makes the scene, is of course, I don't think I need to specify it. Anyone can look at it and say that the background animation is absolutely outrageous. It's godlike. The consistency in background animation is just so good that it makes me feel it could have 3D layouts, but there's just the right amount of imperfections, you could say, that 2D background animation has, right? You can see there's irregularities. It's similar to melting in animation, But those irregularities in this case just make me feel like 3D layout was not even used for this. It's just Idue doing Idue work. This, of course, as said by many people multiple times, it's a reference to Paprika. The way the hallway just warps is just so cool to see. The background animation is just outrageously good. And the way the wood planks just come off one by one and the entire stylistic shift. This looks less like anime, more like cartoon. Down to the line work on the backgrounds, you rarely see lines like these in anime. She then jumps outside the building, and the outside portion, or the inside portion, the foundation of the building, is again just fully hand-drawn. Smoke animation here, spiky smoke effects, again just Utapon style, Idue style. Very cool shot here again. The shine is purposely done, of course. That's where Utahime is currently. And then Gojo's entrance is animated by Dasang. Very cool smears again, the way this is drawn. And then awesome camera work again. Every single individual element moving separately. Broken pieces of the house in the super foreground that is moving upwards, whereas Gojo and his portion is moving downwards. That gives a sense of separation between the two objects. Again, I have to say, the distance between this and Gojo is 0. These are both flat images, but because they are moving independently and in literally opposite directions, that gives the sense of depth between these two models. Camera tracking again, masterful here. Dasang is also mainly doing goofy character acting for Jujutsu Kaisen. He did that for the opening as well. But I mean, his regular drawings are also really cool. I mean, it's very difficult to draw Mei Mei not being hot, I guess. Even if I draw Mei Mei, she'll probably turn out to look extremely hot. But yeah, the frustration marks appearing on Utahime's head, the animation timing and everything here is again something I would probably see in cartoon or something in Studio Trigger. And he's extremely good at traditional animation as well, because gosh, look at that shot. The smoke animation, the curse model itself, that's heavily detailed. The simple style also allows for otherwise complex shots like this, which is Geto fully Kagenashi style, no shadows, then coming into the light and getting shadows and depth just etched into him seamlessly. Again, I have no sound here, but I can tell when a character is saying something. Gojo moves, Gojo's probably saying something. Mei Mei moves, Mei Mei is probably saying something now. They don't even have to animate the mouths. They just have to animate the body. Even down to the little bit of movement at the end here. Just look at Mei Mei. Look at that. 4 individual drawings. Just why? And Utahime's shift from cartoonish angry to this chibi is again just so well done. Shoko is here and a more goofy character acting with background animation for some reason. I also like how Shoko has a cigarette in her mouth, but she's not smoking because she's a minor. The soundtrack here is also lovely. Very cool layout here again. Utahime is literally just no clipping through the camera to then hug Shoko, and the character acting is just exquisite throughout. I cannot even complain with the goofy chibi designs because with shit like that, you get stuff like this. Gojo goes from a jelly bean to his regular proportions, which is something we wouldn't have gotten if the chibi designs didn't exist. And of course, there's background animation with the chibi designs. It's not chibi designs to reduce the workload, it's just an artistic choice to make the shot look good in its own unique way. Also, this one frame goes on for 30 seconds. That would be boring for most people, but there's so much stuff happening with the animation that you don't even realize that it's been 30 seconds since the shot has been held. First of all, there's the debeaning of Gojo. Gojo squashes first so that the stretch is more pronounced. That is classic animation techniques, squashing and stretching. So the squashing is done here to just act as build-up for the stretch. The stretch being the release. Love the way Utahime just chaotically shifts her head here. She's like a cat. And then when Utahime starts talking, she just casually shifts Shoko to the other side. She's literally using Shoko as like an object of emotional support. And of course, that's not all the moment. You also see goofy Geto coming up from the bottom like that. Stuff constantly happening in the shot so that it never gets boring. And yeah, this is, well, the classic triangular Jujutsu Kaisen mouths, and Geto.png just being dragged into screen. Classic Gosso shot, and again, continuous goofy faces. The animated comedy is also very good here. I already broke it down in the PV. The way Gojo is just doing this, it's entirely animated in once. Of course, you need more camera tracking. Also like how Gojo just takes the hit here. He could use his technique to block the hit, but he doesn't, because he knows he's screwed up and deserves the punishment. The next basketball sequence is animated by Junpei Tatenaka, and this is just better than what you would see in most sports anime. The character acting and the dribbling that Gojo does here is just so cool to watch. Again, completely anime original. This does not exist in the manga. My favorite part here is how they're building character interactions through animation. There's very little content for them to build interactions like Gojo plus Shoko, stuff like that. But here you see her testing out Gojo's glasses, which should be blacked out, so she shouldn't be able to see anything right now. And then Gojo just leans backward. Shoko just casually puts on the glasses and then leaves. Just the expression on Shoko's face as she walks away is just so casual. The expression shift of Gojo as well. Gojo has like a neutral face here, and once Shoko puts on the glasses and walks away, Gojo is smiling. Things like that, those build character relationships, and literally no dialogue is spoken there, solely through visuals. More impressive than the animation, of course, is still going to be the shot composition. This is just so crazy. Again, the level of understanding of the perspective on the animator's end is incredible. The level of understanding of spacing by Gosso is also incredible, and just the most creative layouts here. It feels like I'm holding the ball right now, and Gojo's just taking the ball away from me and then throwing it at Geto. Tatanaka's smears are very classic. It's just straight lines. The most technically sound and normal way of using animation. Love the way Geto just transfers the momentum of the ball into his body. I love the way Junpei Tatanaka is animating. It's very by the book, and his animation fundamentals are just very strong. These drawings look particularly great because it's corrected by Sayaka Koiso, the chief animation director and the character designer. Quite an interesting choice to not show Gojo's eyes here at all, because in Sayaka's corrections, you see Gojo's eyes. Love the art direction and coloring here, and also the reflection on the floorboards is really cool. And this is again so cool. You're not even seeing the ball rotate. You're just seeing the ball stay still and the background rotating. Very similar to that scene in Haikyuu. And here again, the way the ball is rotating is shown via vertical lines to show that it's spinning vertically, or well, forward. Hits there, and the particle animation, again, just vertical lines. It's almost as if the spinning of the ball literally breaks apart when it hits the hoop. And another really cool laid out cut here is Geto's hair just getting flicked upwards because of how fast the basketball went past him. When it flicks upwards, it's as if it's flicking the ball into the air, and then it comes down. In real motion, it really looks like that Geto's hair is flicking the ball upwards. Such a cool and creative storyboard. So again, goofy character acting to its finest. The way Geto's curse comes into this shot here, it's almost as if it's literally breaking out of its own dimension and into ours. This is a technique that wasn't used in JJK Season 1 or the movie even. It just appeared out of a black blob. Right now we can see like, it's almost like glass pieces are shattering, and then you see the background being refracted. Also love when Yaga comes in and this expression changes so quickly. It just so naturally changes. This is routine for them, and they start stretching and stuff. They're both on the perfect wavelength. They're so similar, but also so fundamentally different, which is why the disconnect happens. More goofy faces and just the most exaggerated poses and character acting. The scenes from here is animated by Osomin, but before I talk about the animation, I just have to talk. Are all the schools in Japan made like this? Because this is literally the Haikyuu gym, right? Like the school, there's a connection, and there's the gym right there. The character acting is strong. The drawing is also really strong. This is a pretty classic drawing at this point with Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. The shading is great. The character design is also great. Again, just look at this. The color design work, the texture work with the windows, the art direction of the compositing, everything is so perfectly harmonious here. It's wonderful. Also, the way Yaga is talking in the background. Just adding the punchline to Geto's joke is great. I love comedy like that. Even more art directorial flex. This is just masterpieces of backgrounds one after the other. Cool shot composition, but even cooler than that is the next shot. Look at this. The glass looks so much like glass. The perfect amount of see-through, but also having reflection. That's just wonderful work. If I had to critique anything in this entire episode, it would be this. And it's not even the over-exaggerated shonen poses and the backgrounds here that I dislike about this. It's just the fact that it's dimmed, which is scary. I don't want dimming in my shonen anime. No. Dimming and ghosting is so shitty that even the best animators can have their works ruined by it. And dimming has no place in Jujutsu Kaisen. Please let this be the last shot that's dimmed in the entirety of the season. I don't know why Gojo is pressing two buttons here simultaneously. I guess it's because both of them are cola, the same cola. So I already talked about this can opening animation in the PV breakdown. It's just really good. The shading on the can is great. The way the particles are spilling out, fantastic animation. The goofy walk is just so good. The swagger on both the characters and the dichotomy between the two characters when it comes to their character designs, their outfits, and their body language is just great. I love how animated everything is here. Again, I'm probably sounding like a broken record for those who have also watched my PV breakdown because I said the same things there. This is again apparently anime original where Geto is going up in the manga. Apparently he did not go up to the building. And well, he's talking in an elevator, which is not really possible, but I mean, who cares? Goofy face again. And the dialogue is a little bit lost in translation here because, I mean, you can't have the English versions of Boku, Ore, and Watashi. This is again extremely cool layout, but the animation here is underrated. Foreshortening is a very difficult technique in animation because you're making a 2D character, again, walk through an imaginary space and literally create depth using that. Gosso is not just getting smaller in the frame because it's not just one axis that he's moving through. There's the Z axis here as well because it's slightly tilted, and making it look like the character is walking forwards in a 2D background is very impressive, and it's done flawlessly here via animation. Gosso's understanding of timing is also extremely amazing. From Spike's cut in Chainsaw Man episode 8, you can just tell how Gosso loves chaotic cuts, and here he does more of the same. You see the bomb just for the right amount of time such that it registers in your head that there's a bomb there, but not for too long that it fully registers. Also, the drawing of the bomb here is very good. The artwork is very good, and the compositing, the way the red light is illuminating this entire frame is gorgeous. Classic Gosso fisheye, and with Ghetto's really good drawing on front. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if this was corrected by Sayaka Koiso. The boom is not shown from Ghetto's perspective, it is shown from Gojo's perspective, which is again really cool. This whole portion, starting from here, is again animated by Koki Fujimoto, the GOAT himself. Koki Fujimoto's output is of course going to be ridiculous, as in every single show that he animates. This is again just super classic Koki Fujimoto, the thick inky lines, and when the curse opens up, yeah, you can just tell that it's Koki Fujimoto from the inky smears. Again, this shot is pretty confusing. It makes it look like the girl got blown away really far, but she's not actually gotten blown away that far. Classic Gosso fisheye, and again, onomatopoeia on screen. This entire portion, this cut and the running cut and the falling cut. The best thing about all these three cuts is the background animation. The background animation is just absolutely flawless. It does not break whatsoever. It does not even melt. Even the inside of the background is so well animated with the door and the sofa. You would think that this is 3D assisted, and maybe Fujimoto is using 3D assist, but Koki Fujimoto is a master of slow, intricate background animation. As you can see from this cut that he animated in Mob Psycho 100, the background shift is just so slow and just so on model the entire time that it almost looks like a CGI model. But you can bet your ass that it's not 3D assisted because it's Mob Psycho 100. 3D just does not exist there. So I'm assuming more of the same is happening here. It's just Koki Fujimoto's background animation greatness. And it's not just these windows. Again, these windows also have the space inside them drawn again. The effects animation here is really cool. I love the pencil scribbles on top of the smoke effects. I don't think I've ever seen Fujimoto do something similar before. Really cool to see that he's still experimenting with new styles. And again, the background animation is really impressive. The entire space that Gedo's moving through here is 2D. Like the floor here and the wall is hand-drawn by Koki Fujimoto. Running animation, of course, is extremely natural looking, so realistic, classic Fujimoto. In Jujutsu Kaisen 1, this Fushiguro scene was something that I've never seen before. And then in Gosso's Chainsaw Man episode, he animated like one of my favorite sequences in animation ever. He's just a master of natural weighty movements. The squids get thrown into the wall, and no impact frames here, but it's still kind of cool to see that he's using line smears. He usually does not use jagged line smears. And then when Geto is falling down, again, the background animation is just exquisite, and the perspective is also really cool on the background animation. And you see the inside of that sofa. Remember that sofa that you saw earlier when the girl was falling? This is that sofa, but from the top-down view this time. The attention to detail is just crazy. Finally, the curse appearing through this black void. This effects animation looks like something Fujimoto would do. Everything else is just completely unique Fujimoto work. This is again apparently animated by Fujimoto. I love the way he's animating smoke here. It looks so raw, almost as if the compositing team forgot to add compositing layers on it. But I think this is on purpose again. It looks less like smoke and more like thick cloth just waving in air. This slow rotation shot, I have no idea how they're pulling it off. Like I legitimately have no idea how they're doing the shot. Is it 3D? Is it 2D animation on top of a 3D base? Or is it full 2D? Yeah, I can't tell. This final portion is again apparently animated by Shinsuke Kozuma. Many people thought it was Gosso, but I guess not. This is again an extremely underrated cut. It is very complicated to have on-model designs like knives, where, you know, your brain understands what a knife is supposed to look like. But this is knives of different types from completely different perspectives. And then you have to move them across, again, a 3D plane in a way that the models still look like it's 3D, all while also moving the character forward. It is ridiculously difficult to pull off shit like this, and it requires an insane level of animation knowledge. I have no idea how animators in Japan just keep popping up with such strong fundamentals, because if I started animating, I don't think I would ever reach this level. Not in a million fucking years. And you got 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds in Japanese animation industry being able to pull off incredible works. Japanese work culture is very toxic, but I mean, it works. You do see a little bit of clipping error here with this last knife. You see that clips kind of right there, and also the base. You see the base. So yeah. Small error, something you can expect to see errors like that with coming episodes because production schedule is just that bad. That said, most people won't even notice that error. I just noticed that because I'm such a huge Sakuga nerd. Love the shot composition here as well. You see the building, you see the gorgeous smoke animation, and then you zoom back from all of that. You still see the smoke animation, still 2D smoke, but it's completely different because it's further away now. Classic Gosso fisheye effect, the way the background is just wrapping around the characters. Again, visual character building, personality building through just animation. The way he's just scratching his foot with his other foot. He has his hands in his pockets. Just a very casual demeanor. Someone who has like a I don't give a shit attitude towards life. And I can't wait to see the fight between him and Gojo. I know that it's going to be the best animated fight of this year. Currently, I would say the best animated fight of this year so far. Gilgamesh versus Enkidu from Fate Strange Fake. But if there's any team of animators out there who can dethrone them, it is the Seshimo team of animators. The ED sequence is also really cool. I absolutely enjoyed it. It's probably the best ED I've seen this year. It's not my favorite Jujutsu Kaisen ED. I don't think anything will ever top Lost in Paradise with the song and the visuals, but it's still just damn good. I will be breaking it down in a completely different video. Also, the preview sequence it's just funny. I remember, I think it was Cam who tweeted it, that it's like a production crash preview sequence. In the later episodes, when they haven't even completed the animation, they still need something to show for the next episode, but they'll always have that because they're literally using the negative colored production materials as the preview. I don't really think that is why Gosso is doing it, but if Gosso is doing it for that reason, that's kind of meta. It also has a unique style to it, and this is the long-awaited sequence from the PV that I really want to see. Anyway, yeah, wonderful beginning to a new chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, and I cannot wait to see what the staff will pull off next. No matter how shitty the production conditions are, they will still pull through, I'm sure, because the sheer level of talent is just so incredible, right? This production is comparable to like Witch Studios' Attack on Titan Season 1 or Avon Pictures' Fate Apocrypha. Terrible production schedules, but the animation power is so goddamn high that they'll just pull through the terrible production conditions. I cannot wait to see what Keiichiro Watanabe, Hironori Tanaka, and Arifumi Imai have in store for this season. I also think, pretty sure that Bird Creek is also going to animate the season. If you like this video, leave a like. If you did not like this video, leave a dislike. Subscribe and share, spread the love. And that's about it. Thanks for the views.